The Lonely Crane, the Buddhist story that will change how you see solitude. You are terrified of being alone. You flood every silent second with noise, scrolling, chatting, music, notifications, small talk, anything. Because the moment the world goes quiet, something inside you starts screaming that you are broken, unworthy, abandoned. You believe solitude is weakness. You believe it is failure. You believe it means no one truly wants you. But what if the Buddha had a story from ancient India that rips that lie apart and shows you the brutal, liberating truth? Solitude is not your enemy. It is the only place where you finally stop pretending and meet the real you. In ancient India, beside the sacred Ganges River, whose waters carried the prayers of countless generations, lived a magnificent crane. Tall, elegant, feathers the color of gathering storm clouds, eyes sharp with the quiet intelligence of one who had watched many seasons rise and fall. He stood motionless for hours in the shallow waters, spear-like beak poised, yet his mind was rarely on the fish. Every dawn and every dusk, he watched them come, massive, noisy flocks of ducks, geese, minus, parrots, and egrets that descended on the riverbank like a living storm. They chattered without pause, argued over the best fishing spots, preened each other's feathers, laughed at nothing, and moved together in restless, chaotic clouds. From a distance, their life looked full, complete, connected. The crane felt the old familiar ache rise in his chest, that heavy, suffocating weight of loneliness, even while surrounded by thousands of beating wings. He had the river. He had the sky. He had strength and grace most birds would envy. Yet, something inside him whispered that he was missing the one thing everyone else seemed to possess: belonging. The pain grew until it became unbearable. One golden afternoon, when the flock was larger and louder than ever, the crane spread his powerful wings and flew straight into their midst. They welcomed him with curious cries and made space. For the first time in years, the crane was no longer alone. He tried desperately to fit in. He copied their constant chatter. He laughed at jokes he didn't understand. He nodded along as they bragged about distant migrations, perfect mates, and superior fishing grounds. He wore the mask of belonging so perfectly that even he almost believed it. But beneath the noise, something felt deeply wrong. Day after day, he began to see the truth the flock tried to hide. Many birds were pretending too. They spoke loudly to drown out their own fears. They stayed glued together, not from genuine love, but from terror of being left behind. Their companionship was built on comparison, gossip, fragile egos, and silent competition. The more time the crane spent among them, the more exhausted he became. The loneliness he once knew in silence had simply been replaced by a louder, more exhausting kind of loneliness, the loneliness of being surrounded by masks. He began to long for the quiet riverbank he had left behind. Then, without warning, the sky turned black. A violent monsoon storm swept down the valley like the wrath of forgotten gods. Fierce winds howled through the trees. Torrential rain lashed the earth. The once peaceful Ganges swelled into a raging, muddy beast. In the chaos, the great flock exploded in panic. Birds screamed and scattered in every direction, desperate for shelter. A powerful gust slammed into the crane, spinning him through the air like a broken leaf. When he finally regained control of his wings, he was completely alone, torn far downstream and deposited on a small rocky island in the middle of the swollen river. The storm had isolated him utterly. There was no flock, no chatter, no distractions, only him, the pounding rain, the roaring wind, and the vast, terrifying silence. At first, panic seized him completely. Every instinct screamed to fly, to search, to find anyone, anything, to escape this emptiness. He paced the tiny island, heart hammering, wings half open, ready to flee the moment the wind allowed. But the storm was merciless. Flying was impossible. There was nowhere to go. So he stopped. He stood perfectly still under the hammering rain, water streaming from every feather. And in that forced stillness, something inside him began to crack open. With nothing left to distract him, he became aware of his own breathing, the slow rise and fall of his chest, the way his racing heart gradually began to settle. He felt each individual raindrop strike his wings, cold and alive. He noticed the cool, wet mud gripping his feet. He heard the thunder not as danger, but as a deep, ancient drumbeat of the earth itself. For the first time in his entire life, the crane was not running from the present moment. He was completely, mercilessly inside it. As the hours passed and the storm slowly lost its fury, the crane experienced a shattering awakening. In the heart of this enforced solitude, he tasted the raw, impossible miracle of simply being alive. He watched a single silver fish leap from the churning river with perfect clarity. He saw a small lotus, battered by the rain, still bravely opening its petals in the mud. Gratitude flooded through him like the river itself. Gratitude for his eyes that could see, for his wings that had carried him through the storm, for the beating heart inside his chest that had survived against all odds. The loneliness he had feared for so long was not emptiness at all. It was spaciousness, a sacred, ferocious space where the noise of the world finally fell away and his true nature could rise without shame, without performance, without apology. When the storm finally passed and the sun broke through the clouds in golden shafts of light, the crane did not rush to rejoin the flock. He stood taller. His eyes were clearer. His entire being felt lighter. He had discovered what so few ever do. Solitude is not the absence of others. It is the birthplace of authenticity. It is the only place where no one can demand you wear a mask. The only place where you can hear the quiet, honest voice of your own soul. The only place where genuine wisdom, courage, presence, and gratitude can take root and grow. The crane had learned what the noisy flock would never understand. The habits of constant distraction and forced companionship had quietly controlled him for years. They had kept him from the one thing he needed most, the courage to be alone with himself. And so, he returned to his beloved spot on the riverbank, no longer as the lonely crane, but as one who had made peace with solitude. He still watched the flocks from time to time, but now he watched with different eyes, eyes full of understanding and deep compassion. He knew their noise, he knew their fear, and he knew the priceless treasure that waited for anyone brave enough to step away from it all. The Buddha told this story to his monks and asked them a single, devastating question. How long will you continue running from the very space where your freedom begins? You are living this story right now. Every time you reach for your phone in a quiet moment, every time you say yes to plans you don't want, every time you fill the silence because being with yourself feels too heavy, you are that crane flying desperately into the noisy flock. But the storm is always coming. Life has a way of isolating you through loss, through change, through moments when the world suddenly goes quiet. The question is not whether solitude will find you. The question is whether you will finally stop running when it does. Will you have the courage to stand still, feel your own breathing, notice the small miracles happening right in front of you, and taste the sweetness of this exact moment, alone, present, and fully alive? Or will you keep fleeing into noise until the opportunity to truly know yourself has passed forever? The choice is yours, and it always has been.